906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. 906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. Part 1 of a trip to the blacksmith shop. How do you turn this into this?
Taking a round chunk of steel, applying heat and hammering, and I end up with this hatchet that just is what totally enthuses me about blacksmithing.
And we'll take a look at Tahquamenon Country. 9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. In a time long ago, the blacksmith was at the heart of every village and was often thought of as a magician because of his mastery of ironworking and ability to understand the metallurgy of the iron that he used. Those days may be long gone, but the blacksmith still does exist. In Marquette, that's Gordon Gerhardt.
Well, my name is Gordon Gerhardt, and I'm a blacksmith living and working in Marquette. I started blacksmithing in 1981 and have kept at it since.
I met Gordon a while back at the infamous Margie Gessick bike race. Gordon is the creator of the coveted buckles given out to only a select few. This time I was in his shop to watch as he transformed a regular hunk of metal into something unique and useful.
I'm going to make a hatchet today. I'm using a torsion bar from some kind of American-made pickup truck. I will cut a section of this and form the material that I will use to make the hatchet. The fuel I burn in my forge is called coke. It's coal that's been refined in a burning process. The first thing I'm going to do is cut this bar off to the length that will make the material that I need to make the hatchet head. So my first step will be to bring it over here to the anvil, cut some marks with that tool which is called a hot cut. Then I'll take it to the power hammer and cut it all the way off. Taking short ones out of long ones. And so what I'm doing here is just filing off the ragged ends of the cut so that they do not get forged into the final piece. The next step with this I'll put it on end under the power hammer and make it short and square it up. I salvage a lot of my own steel. It rarely is the proper size that I need, so I end up hammering it down into the size I need. The hatchet head's an example of this, where I'm starting with a round bar, and in the process of forging we'll turn it into a rectangular block, which will then be made into the hatchet.
906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by L&M Fleet Supply, proudly serving the Northland for over 30 years.
I've made a lot of my own tools. A few of the hammers I've made, many of them I've collected from garage sales and junk shops. The tongs, and the chisels and punches, all of those I've made. Through the years, I've made special tools for particular jobs. Sometimes they only have one use, and then they are used for that job and then not used again. A lot of times I'll reconfigure them to work for something else. Bring the block out of the fire. I'm just going to put some light marks in here. This will be where the eye starts. The goal is to have the two cuts meet directly at the same point in the center of the bar. Sometimes it happens, sometimes not. Little coal dust in there to keep the chisel from sticking. I guess blacksmithing goes in spurts. There's a lot of action for a very short time, and then there's a lot of standing around waiting for it to get hot again. Little bits at a time. Started out working sheet metal. I worked for my grandfather during my summers when I was in high school. I guess that's what got me to be pounding on metal. It wasn't blacksmithing, but it was still related, hammers and metal, and shaping metal with hammers. The blacksmithing came about through an interest in making knives. And my idea of making knives came from a book that I had that gave a description on how to make a knife that involved a forge and hammering. So that really got me started thinking about blacksmithing. So the next step in this process is to open that hole up a little bit, drive a series of drifts through there to shape that eye. Eventually I got enough information in my head that I built a forge and acquired some coal and an anvil and a hammer. And that was really the beginning of my blacksmithing. I had very little knowledge about blacksmithing itself, but through books and trial and error, I learned. Why I keep doing it, process of heating metal and then pushing it into shape with hammers and other tools is really what has kept me doing it. There's an endless variety of shapes that can be created with that method. And I keep coming up with things that interest me in that area. So there we go. The hole is slit through the bar. I could make this all with hand hammer, but I think I'll use the power. A fair amount of my work is custom order. I do production items that I take to various sales and demonstrations that I do, but most of my work is custom order. Some of it's inspired by my customers who want a specific style or a specific motif in their work that they're ordering. I recently did a fire screen, and I followed my customer's business logo, which was a tree branch with birds. And so using that as a takeoff point, I came up with my own interpretation. Sometimes I'll just have ideas in my head and think that I need to carry them out. That would apply to a lot of my artwork.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom.
Blacksmith's fire burns hot because of the air that is going into it, and there's various ways of getting that air there. It could be done with a hand-operated bellows system, or as time or technology progressed, there was hand crank blowers, which basically was a hand-operated fan. And what I use here now is an electric fan that blows the air into the fire. It saves a lot of effort and energy expenditure. And while the fan is blowing, I can be doing other things. Historically speaking, I mean, Marquette was all about production of iron and forging iron into bars to be used in the various industries that were going on in the UP, the mining, the lumber, probably the fishing industry, you know, the iron that went into ships and keeping them floating. And, you know, Marquette was a city that was built on providing that iron for all those industries that were happening up here in the late 1800s. You know, it's kind of ironic or maybe fitting that I am here in Marquette hammering iron. That's starting to look like a hatchet now. I'm just going to refine the edge a little bit, call it done. I could leave out a whole lot of steps in this process and come up with a usable and functional hatchet. But I do like to take it a step further and really refine the looks of the piece and ultimately how it hangs on the handle and how it's used. So I make axes for the satisfaction of making an axe. I could go to the store, buy an axe, but that would not be the same as taking the time and learning the skills to actually make one. I'm going to grind the profile of this head and then do a little more hammering and then harden and temper. Now, why should somebody buy one of my axes? Well, because I made it here. They could come and they could talk to me. They could see the process. That's the difference between buying one of my axes that has my logo stamped in it, as opposed to going to the store and buying one made somewhere else. A well-made tool works well, and a poorly made tool doesn't work so well. It keeps me creative, keeps me interested in working and making stuff. Taking a round chunk of steel, applying heat and hammering, and I end up with this hatchet that just is what totally enthuses me about blacksmithing and keeps my interest going, because I could do this every day for the rest of my life.
Be sure to tune in next week for part 2 of our trip to the Blacksmith Shop. 906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Blades Bait and Tackle, your hardwater connection to Little Beatty Knock. If you're familiar with the Newberry Paradise area, most likely the first thing that comes to mind is Tahquamenon Falls, and with good reason. It's one of the most spectacular sights in the Upper Peninsula. But look a bit deeper into this pristine corner of the UP, and you'll find a great summertime getaway spot offering a wide variety of must-see attractions and activities that are family-friendly, affordable, and adventurous. We'll begin our journey in Newberry. Drive just 1 mile north on 123 where the Tahquamenon River crosses, and you'll find the Tahquamenon Logging Museum. Continue on 123 another 3 miles, hang a left on 407, and it's only 4.5 miles to Oswald's Bear Ranch.
Oswald's Bear Ranch is 240 acres of natural habitats for the bears. And you see bears in a natural setting, so you can see the bears swimming in the ponds, you can see them wrestling and climbing the trees, nibbling on the branches, and just about anything that you think a black bear would do, you can see here right at Oswald's Bear Ranch, and you get right up close to them. If you want to interact with the cubs, that's a $10 free, and that's a bucket list item. A lot of people send us back some emails saying it's the best thing that's ever happened on their family vacation. So we get Christmas cards with that kind of stuff too. It's a happy-go-lucky place to come and see. Yeah, there's 240 acres here, but the original 80 acres is right now the tentative walk around of habitats. There are 4 large habitats. They're about a quarter of a mile to a half mile around. It's easy access, so you can come bring the family and walk around the habitats, and there's elevated platforms to get up over top of the fences. You can look down and see the bears without the fences in the way and get some good pictures or some good videos, and it's easy going. We like to invite active military with their families, a free admittance for that. Salute our military families and the heroes. We also have free school field trips, so if anybody would like to bring the class here, feel free to do that. Just go right onto our website and you can book that, and it's all free at oswaldsbearranch.com.
There's certainly no shortage of places to camp and fish in the area. Continue on 407 through Pine Stump Junction, hang a left on 416, and another left on Pretty Lakes Road to one of my favorite places to do both, the Pretty Lakes Quiet Area.
The Pretty Lakes Complex in Lewis County offers a series of small lakes that you can portage to and from. Not only are they isolated by carry-in and portage, they're also protected by no motors regulations. Portages are generally through open white pine forest. The lakes are nestled among white pine, spruce, cedar, and poplar trees. Boats with any motor are not allowed. The Pretty Lakes Complex is taken care of by the Michigan DNR State Forest and there is a State Forest campground on Pretty Lake, as well as additional rustic campsites on Camp 8 Lake and Beaver House. All campers should register at the Pretty Lake State Forest Campground, and a recreation passport is required. Although close enough for easy portaging, the rest of the lakes in the Pretty Lake Complex maintain their own individual qualities. They have varying shapes and contours, and the presence and absence of submerged aquatic plants, and the presence and absence of artificial fish attractant. The Michigan DNR Fisheries Division also helps preserve their diverse characters by stocking different species in many of the lakes.
A bit further north on the shores of Lake Superior is Grand Marais, a great place for agate hunting. The Upper Peninsula is one of the best places on the planet to be a rockhound, and some of the most prized finds are agates. The best way to find out more is to take a cruise to the Gitchagumi Agate and History Museum in Grand Marais and talk to the agate lady herself.
The museum was founded in the early 1950s by a gentleman named Axel Nemi. He ran it through the early 80s, and he made me into the rockhound that I now am. For 10,000 years since the glaciers last retreated, there's been a lot of erosion. The glaciers also freed up a lot of different types of rock, and so we have an extreme variety of rock, especially between Grand Marais and Whitefish Point. This is a Lake Superior agate, and this one has probably 6 different types of structure. There's 20 or 30 different types of structure that the microcrystalline quartz crystals manifest in terms of how they fill in those spaces. And one thing about Lake Superior agate, we used to say it's the oldest agate on Earth, and unfortunately now there's some in Australia that are a little bit older, but we're certainly the oldest agate in the Western Hemisphere. Our agates are 1.1 billion years old, but the nice thing about Lake Superior agates is that we have many different structures, perhaps more of the varieties of structures than any other agate in the world.
Travel a half an hour north of Newberry on 123 to Tahquamenon Falls State Park, home to the area's biggest attraction, Tahquamenon Falls. The lower falls is made up of 5 smaller falls. 4 miles upstream, the Upper Falls is one of the largest waterfalls east of the Mississippi. 200 feet across with a 50-foot drop spilling more than 50,000 gallons of water per second. The falls may indeed be the centerpiece, but there's a whole lot more park going on here than meets the eye.
There are 6 different nature trails throughout Tahquamenon Falls State Park. One of the ones that is most well known is the hike from the upper falls to the lower falls in the park itself. They also offer a shuttle service, so if you walk from one to the other and you need to get back to your car, you don't have to walk back, you can get a ride.
There are 2 campgrounds in Tahquamenon Falls State Park, one at the lower falls, and the other is 5 miles south of Paradise on M123, where the Tahquamenon River flows into Whitefish Bay on Lake Superior. At the lower falls campground, there are 2 modern campgrounds with 90 sites each, complete with electricity, fire pit, table, hot showers, and flush toilets. There's a picnic area and shelter, playground and concession stand. The campground at Lower Falls is open year-round. The Tahquamenon Falls Rivermouth unit features 136 modern and rustic campsites along the Tahquamenon River with a boat launch. Tahquamenon Falls State Park encompasses close to 50,000 acres stretching over 13 miles. Most of this is undeveloped woodland without roads, buildings, or power lines. Much of this rarely seen backcountry can be accessed by the 35 miles of hiking trails in the park. Spend a day hiking through some of the great scenery the park has to offer. And if a day is not enough, spend a night at one of the park's backcountry campsites. And when you get back out, stop in at the Tahquamenon Falls Brewery for some genuine UP craft beers and great food. This look at Tahquamenon Country covers only a portion of all there is to do in this unique corner of the UP. There are many more campgrounds, hiking trails, a couple hundred miles of ORV trails, canoeing and kayaking, and of course a wealth of fishing opportunities. Visit the Whitefish Point Bird Observatory. While you're in the area, stop by the Crisp Point Lighthouse or the Point Iroquois Lighthouse. Check out the many gift shops in the area. During the winter months, you'll find endless snowmobiling opportunities. Maybe come out for the Tahquamenon Sled Dog Race or any of the many events that take place throughout the year. Regardless of the season or your quest for adventure, you may want to put Tahquamenon Country on your calendar for a great UP vacation destination.